Welcome to the Explainer. Every single day, we all experience this quick 2-second piece of everyday magic. You click login and boom, you instantly get access to your most sensitive accounts. But during those 2 seconds, a highly orchestrated, frankly fascinating exchange of information happens behind the scenes, just to prove your identity. So today, we're unpacking the actual mechanics of secure password authentication. We're going to follow one single login request on its entire journey, from your browser all the way to the server and back. So let me hook you right away with a massive question. When you type in that secret phrase, does the website actually store your password somewhere? Really think about the implications of this for a second. If a group of hackers manages to break into some massive website's authentication database, does that mean they can just instantly read everyone's passwords in plain text? Like, if they steal the database, are all of our accounts instantly compromised? And if websites don't store those passwords directly, well, how on earth do they verify that you've entered the correct one when you try to log in? Okay, let's dive into this. The reality is what I like to call the great illusion. They actually don't have your password. Well, well-designed websites don't anyway. They never store the actual value that you type into that password field. Because if passwords were stored exactly as users typed them, a stolen database would be a totally catastrophic event. Every single account would be immediately exposed. So instead, the server takes what you type and completely transforms it before it ever even gets saved to a database. And that transformation happens through something called a cryptographic hash function. This is basically a mathematical process that takes your password, no matter how ridiculously long or short it is, and converts it into a fixed length value. But the absolutely crucial part of this definition is the very end. It cannot practically be reversed. It's a one-way street. Think of it like a digital fingerprint. Once your password is put through this function, the original text you typed is fundamentally discarded. The only thing that gets stored in the database is that resulting irreversible hash. But honestly, that brings up a really interesting scenario. Imagine two completely different users, maybe living on opposite sides of the world, who just so happen to choose the exact same password. Let's say they both choose my secure password 123. If they both run that through the exact same mathematical hash function, shouldn't the database store identical hashes for both of them? And if a hacker gets in and sees two identical hashes, wouldn't they instantly know those two users share the same password? Well, yes, they would, which is why engineers came up with an absolutely brilliant solution: adding a unique salt. Before the server even hashes your password, it generates a random, completely unique value for your specific account. This is the salt. I like to think of it like a unique recipe ingredient. Imagine two people are cooking the exact same dish using the exact same password, but right before baking, you add a totally different secret ingredient to each one. You're going to produce completely different results. Because of this unique salt, even if two users choose the exact same password, their stored hashes in the database are going to look entirely different. So let's look at the chronological journey of creating a brand new account, just to make sure we've got this. Step 1, you choose your password. Step 2, the server immediately generates and adds that unique salt to your password. Step 3, it runs that combination through the cryptographic hash function to generate your irreversible hash. And finally, step 4, it stores only the hash and the salt in the database. Your original password, it's completely wiped from the server's memory. This incredibly simple yet elegant design choice is exactly what protects millions of users' credentials every single day. And this whole process, it's driven by a really foundational security principle. Never store secrets that you don't absolutely need. This is a critical mindset for system architects and security engineers. Instead of using something like reversible encryption, where, a master key could potentially get stolen and unlock all the passwords, they rely on these one-way functions. The server literally doesn't need to know what your password is. It only needs a reliable way to verify that you know what your password is. So let's see how this builds into the actual anatomy of a login attempt. When you return to the site and type your password, step 1 is your browser sending those credentials over a secure HTTPS connection. This protects them while they travel across the open internet. In step 2, the server looks up your username and retrieves your unique stored salt from the database. Step 3 is where the magic happens. It combines the password you just typed with that retrieved salt and calculates a brand new hash right then and there. Finally, step 4, it compares this newly calculated hash with the hash it originally stored when you registered. If they match perfectly, just like matching two fingerprints, the server concludes you entered the correct password. And it did all of this without ever needing to see the original one. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. Once that hash matches, your password's job is completely finished. Now, you get the session, or as I like to call it, your VIP pass. The server creates an authenticated session and hands your browser a session identifier, usually some kind of secure cookie or token. Think of it like showing your ID at the front desk of a really secure office building. Once they verify who you are, they hand you a VIP visitor pass. You don't have to keep stopping and showing your driver's license at every single door inside the building, right? You just tap your pass. That session token is exactly why you don't have to retype your password every single time you click a new page on your banking site. Which naturally leads us to another big question. What actually happens when you click log out? A lot of people kind of assume that logging out somehow deletes their password from their computer's memory. But remember, your password was never actually stored in the browser for authentication in the first place. What logging out actually does is invalidate your active VIP session pass. You are essentially returning that visitor badge to the front desk as you leave the building. Once it's deactivated, if someone tries to reuse that specific session identifier later on, the server is just going to flat out reject it. Now, these underlying mechanics also explain a crucial difference that you've probably experienced: password reset versus password recovery. Have you ever noticed that legitimate websites will offer a reset password link, but they never, ever have a show my password link? Well, that is totally by design. Because cryptographic hashes are fundamentally irreversible one-way streets, it is mathematically impossible for the website to recover or show you your old password. They simply don't know it. All they can do is verify your identity, usually through your email or phone, and allow you to overwrite that old hash by creating a brand new password. Now, a quick technical note here. Not just any hash function will do the trick. Engineers use specific, intentionally slow password hashing algorithms. Things like Argon2, bcrypt, scrypt, and pbkdf2. Now, you might be thinking, why slow? Well, because these are mathematically designed to be computationally expensive. If an attacker manages to steal a database and tries what's called offline password guessing, where they basically use massive computers to guess millions of passwords, hash them, and compare the results rapidly, these specific algorithms ensure that the whole process takes an impractically long amount of time and computing power. It just makes it not worth it. But that brings us to the attacker's reality and our real vulnerabilities. The cryptography behind hashing, salting, and HTTPS is incredibly rock solid. Attackers know they can't break the math. So you know what? They don't even try. Instead, they rely entirely on human mistakes and bad habits. They rely on people choosing weak passwords like password123, which can still be guessed relatively quickly. They rely heavily on password reuse, where a breach on one tiny, unsecured website gives them the exact key they need to unlock your bank account. They use phishing websites to trick you into handing over the password yourself, or they use malware to just steal those VIP session cookies right off your compromised device. Which brings us to our final provocative thought for today's explainer. As we've seen, modern system architecture goes to absolutely incredible lengths to protect your credentials. Your password is mathematically transformed, it's salted, and it's securely verified. Simply put, your password is safe from the database. But looking at all those human vulnerabilities we just talked about, is it safe from you? It's definitely a question worth asking yourself the next time you're setting up a new account. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the mechanics of authentication. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.